Hello and welcome to Dadvice. In this episode we are going to be talking about what happens when it's go time, when the contractions start and when the show kicks off and baby's on the way. We'll be going through a little bit about my own experience and hoping that you can take some bits and pieces away from that, and obviously running through some tips and tricks that I missed that means that you don't make the same mistakes that I did. So here we go. First things first, most importantly, stay calm. I know it's easier said than done, but focus on the task at hand. Bear in mind that this can pop up at any time. For me, it was my wife's waters broke at about 3 in the morning. I happened to be sleeping in the spare room because she hadn't been sleeping very well and it had been keeping me up, and I was still working, so I happened to have just gone into the spare room that night just to try and get a bit of a better night's sleep. That's when waters broke at 3 a.m. My wife didn't come get me till about 4:45, just to try and let me get as much sleep as possible so that at least one of us was kind of rested and was able to function properly. Thank you for that, appreciate the extra hour and a bit of sleep. So for me, from when I woke up to when we were walking out the door to go to the hospital was about 40 minutes, something like that. Bear in mind that this can happen, it can kind of creep up on you. One minute you're tucked up nicely in bed and the next minute it's all going off. So you've got to be ready and you've got to focus on the task at hand when it all starts unfolding. So some tips to do that. I would definitely recommend having a leaving the house list, a bunch of stuff that is easily forgotten in the heat of the moment. Now, this is an example of something that I did. I remembered to have the list. I didn't remember to look at the list. I think it got to about 2 in the afternoon, so 6 or 7 hours after our baby was born, that I remembered, oh yeah, I had that list that I was going to look at before leaving the house. Now, in another video, I'm going to go through bits and pieces that are going to be helpful to have with you. But if you have that list ready to go and you've got your bag packed, it's then just a question of getting yourself out the door. So it will make life a lot easier. I would strongly recommend doing your homework beforehand in terms of the contractions and the timings and when is a good time to start thinking about time to go to hospital, when it's time to just sort of keep the situation calm and kind of wait a little bit longer. There are various apps and so on that you can get that will help you time the contractions. On that, if you are going to get an app, I would definitely suggest that you and your partner have the same one. We were in a situation where I had an app on my phone and my wife had an app on her phone, and I had no idea how hers worked, but because she'd already been up for like an hour and a half counting them, it made sense to keep using her timer, but I did not know how it worked. So I was then relying on her to tell me, which was not an ideal situation. So I would say if you're going to get an app, make sure it's the same one. While we're talking about stuff to have on the phone, I would definitely recommend using the notes section on your phone and jotting down various bits of information. Phone numbers for the pregnancy advice line is a big one. For the hospital, for the unit, rather than just sort of have it in a list in the yellow folder or something like that, I would definitely recommend having it on your phone, because then it's there to hand. And if your wife or partner is going through contractions and so on, you're not going to want to leave her to go downstairs and rummage through the drawer and find the phone number so that you can call the advice line. You're going to want to have it all there to hand. When you phone the pregnancy advice line, they're going to ask you a few questions. They're going to ask you how far apart the contractions are, how long they're lasting. They're also going to need information about mum. So they're going to want her name, ideally hospital number, the hospital that you're planning to give birth at if that's where you're planning to go. Again, have all that information there. Another clanger from me, they asked for her date of birth and I gave them my date of birth in the heat of the moment, which led to some confusion. Have it all written down beforehand. You know they're going to ask this stuff, so just have it there in front of you. It just takes the brain out of the equation. In the heat of the moment, you can say stupid things, so it will just help you bypass that, keep everything moving along smoothly. So when we were calling, initially the contractions were kind of far enough apart that they weren't too worried. They said, okay, give it another couple of hours, see how you're getting on at that point. Things really started to accelerate pretty quickly for us. It was only 25 minutes later, I think, that I was calling back saying these contractions are coming thick and fast, they're lasting a long time. It had already got to the point by then that my wife was no longer able to hold a conversation on the phone while the contractions were happening. So that was an indicator to me and to the people on the other end of the phone that things were really starting to happen. They actually at one point said to me, "We don't think you're going to have time to make it to a hospital by the sounds of it. We're going to have to get an ambulance out to you now." I knew that my wife's preference was to have the baby in the hospital. I know she didn't want a home birth. That was not what she wanted to do. My concern with an ambulance coming out was that by the time we'd waited for them to arrive, things may have progressed that much further, that they would have then insisted that we do it there and then, that we wouldn't have had time to get her into hospital. I know that wasn't her preference. Ultimately, I had to make a judgment call. By this point, it was 5:30 in the morning. I knew the traffic would be quiet. I knew my routes to the hospital, and I was confident that I could get her there quickly and safely. It turned out that when we got to hospital, baby didn't arrive for another sort of 3 hours or so. But I share this with you to illustrate the point that it's like you may well be in these positions where you have to make tough decisions and you're not going to be able to have a dialogue. You're not going to be able to sit there and say, "What do you think, honey? Do you think we should wait for the ambulance to come?" That might be the case that you're just going to have to make a call on it. And if that is the case, then make the call for what's best for both of you. That would be my advice in that situation. To circle back around to the beginning, I think the absolute most important thing is to try and keep your head, keep calm. For me, I'm a very task-orientated person. I like a list. I like working through things. So if you're that kind of person as well, it will help keep your focus on getting a job done one step after another, and prevent you from becoming overwhelmed by the situation. Remember, if you are going to be the birth partner, your job is to keep adrenaline at bay. That is going to slow everything up in terms of the labour. So you need to keep things as calm as you possibly can, and it starts at the point that the contractions are coming through. That's the point at which your job kicks in. If you're not that sort of way inclined in terms of the kind of like task-driven, one step after another kind of person, that's fine too. I think if you're at all concerned about the fact that you struggle to cope in kind of high pressure situations, it's not a problem at all. It doesn't mean you'll be a bad birth partner. It just means that you need to have those conversations now with your partner, talk through your concerns, put in place a game plan. You're going to find it so much easier if you're prepared. If you're suddenly having to run around the house going, "Oh my God, I don't know where I put this, I don't know where I put that. What should we be doing? Should we be doing that? Should we be doing..." If you've already got all the phone numbers in place, you've already got the bags packed, it takes a lot of that stress away from the situation. And if you do feel a little bit overwhelmed by it at this point, now's the time to have the discussion. Come up with a plan together that is going to put you both at ease, so that you both have an idea of what to expect in terms of when that time comes, and you're going to find it a lot easier to spring into action and do the job that you need to do. So guys, I hope you found that helpful. I hope there were some good tips in there. Any ladies watching, please do share it with your partners. Make sure that they're going to be clued up and good to go when the big day finally arrives. And likewise, if you've got any other kind of friends, family that are going through a similar situation, please, I would really appreciate it if you go ahead and share this with them and see if they can get some useful tips out of it to make life a little bit easier for them too. I'm sure they'd appreciate that as well. And as always, if you've got any other kind of tips and tricks that I haven't mentioned here that you found really helpful, please share them in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for sticking around to the end, and I will be back very soon with some more Dadvice for you. Take it easy. Bye.